Finally back with an Awakening at the Clone Wars ground hero tier list for the Confederacy of Independent Systems. That's the Separatist movement. Finally talking about these ground heroes. It's a little bit harder to evaluate these because they're in direct competition with naval heroes, which are generally agreed to be more important. I think that's the case too. Most players put priority on the naval commanders, but I definitely still think there's room for a couple of ground commanders, especially these free ones. Like these don't count towards the 10 build limit. That's basically what this section means. And I left bounty hunters off this time because I actually will evaluate them to some extent at the end here. Because they're very more they're a bit more impactful on the ground than they are in space, I believe. So yeah, we'll get there. You guys should know how I feel about Hondo if you saw my Space Heroes tier list. He's insane. He deserves a mention right now. He just comes with two free tanks and himself and a WLO with Brace for Impact. So love to see it. It's great value. Then he comes with some pirates on the ground, of which one is a Rocketeer. It's just absurd value. The combat bonus, I think, is supposed to work on the ground. Someday it probably will. But even with the combat bonus not working on the ground, he's still an outstanding hero. You should pay the small price he costs and use him as a free commander. The rest we'll touch on as we go. They all kind of come up related to other topics. So, yeah, without further ado, we're going to begin with the super tactical droid, which he's actually going to go here. So I'm kind of just leading in with him because he's unique. He deserves a mention. The super tactical droid is insane because, as I mentioned in my Space Heroes list, the buff that he has, since it's not a general or a commander bonus, it stacks. You'll see it says Super Tactical Droid. That's a 7.5% bonus to all droids and droid brain vehicles. So he's an infantry commander, but he buffs your droid brain vehicles. Now finding clarification on that's been a little bit. It is intuitive. It's pretty easy. Spoiler alert: almost everything is a droid brain vehicle. So things piloted by B1s, obviously and especially, and then so a little less clear on other vehicles, but it's still worth bringing this guy in every army because we're working with only 10 ground slots on the ground and 10 build slots in the broader campaign. This guy doesn't cost a build slot. He's just a separate build limit of 3 for super tactical droids. Oh, and by the way, he comes with the next hero we're about to talk about, which is the T-Series Tactical Droid Platoon. These are both S tier, and you should have 3 of both of them at all times because it doesn't hurt you, it doesn't cost you anything. So the T-Series, again, can't stress this enough, it's actually wild. The Super Tactical Droid comes with one of these. So not only are you getting the incredible Droid Brain bonus of 7.5%, but you're also getting Infantry Tactician, which is a different buff as well. It also stacks to your infantry. It's a 2.5% bonus to infantry slash droids. So that means your organic infantry is also buffed. And both of these heroes have fire command, so increasing the fire rate of your infantry is very good. It's independently good. Doesn't need anything else. You can put these on defense worlds because you're going to have a lot of them. There's 6. You probably don't want, I mean, realistically, you don't even need these guys in your offensive armies, but you're going to have so many that you can spread them around, feel them how you like. You really don't need them to be in the same stack since this guy comes with them, but you'll be taking casualties. Trust me. Playing the Confederacy. On the ground, at least. It's a different ball game. Totally different game. And I suppose we'll put those in free because they effectively are. They don't count towards that 10 commander build limit I mentioned. Then we'll transition into our next topic here. So the Separatist vehicle commander is very disappointing because he does count towards the 10 commander build limit, and he only brings a 2.5% vehicle tactician bonus to the table. He also has the fire command ability, which is kind of funny. I mean, I guess he's peeking out the top. Maybe he gives orders to nearby infantry, but he buffs the fire rate of your infantry, which is cute. Other than that, he's just a generic combat tank. I mean, he has 100 extra health for whatever reason, but he's just a generic, blue AAT. So those things are great, but they're definitely not worth a build slot. I mean, I don't see a world where you bring something like this unless you're trying to absolutely power game and get as high as a bonus as possible on a vehicle commander. Maybe like Domb Treetor, for example, which actually might as well talk about him next. Yeah, big fat F for the Separatist vehicle commander. Domb Treetor, though, this guy's pretty cool. The only reason I think you'd ever consider a vehicle commander is to buff him. He's in a super tank, which I haven't made my regular ground units tier list, but super tanks are definitely S tier. There's a reason they have a build limit. The amount of damage they deal is absurd. The burst artillery rocket, the weapon that they have, maybe I need to look again, but I couldn't find it in the weapons description. It does a lot of damage. It feels like it's good against everything. It does absurd damage from a great range of 1200, which is a lot on the ground, way more than it is in space. And on top of that, he comes with these really cool Skakoan Sapper units. His defensive bonus will tie into the next tier we're going to talk about. So we don't like damage malices, but you know we'll lead into our next guy. The Skakoan Sappers have mines and a defensive smokescreen ability, which is really cool. And you're getting extreme value for bringing Domb Treetor because he comes with infantry teams that increase the survivability of your ground, your foot mobiles. So he's just I love getting extra bang for your buck in that 10 out of 10 build slot. So everything you see in the S and the A tier is going to be extraordinary. It's going to be like lots and lots of value packed in. It's going to be competing really heavily for that limited amount of build slots. Like most people, you're probably going to spend like, 2, 3 build slots on ground units at most. The rest is going to be Navy again. So again, the smokescreen ability is really cool. It's like a lesser version of another. It's like the sandbag ability that the Neimoidian hero has. We'll talk about shortly. Just nice durability. And again, super tank. It's absurd. It's so good. It's wild. That damage malice that I briefly mentioned, we can cancel it out completely using the next hero on the list, which is going to be Linwodo. He's actually going straight into the S tier because this guy's bonkers. He has that bonus we talked about on the super tactical droid, but he also comes with 3 elite snail tanks, which have they have a charge ability, which increases their durability and their speed. So, oh, by the way, he also comes with an ammo container. So you're getting a droid brain bonus of 7.5%. You're getting pragmatic general, which just has no downside. That's 7.5% damage. By the way, that perfectly cancels out the 15% combo, 15% malice from Domb Treetor. So you're getting the whole smorgasbord of buffs, except for the tactical vehicle commander but if you want a meta game, you want a min-max, maybe that's cute to throw in. I don't think it's worth it. It's up to you. But in any case, Linwodo, absolutely absurd even by himself. He's an anti-personnel disabler. He can stun using his heavy ion cannons from, just regular snail tanks. But then them having ammo container and charge adds to their value. So you get to save a build slot. You don't have to bring a super tactical droid. You get a regular general. This guy is just S tier. You don't need Domb Treetor for him to be absurd value. Love him. Absolutely love him. That's a good segue into Kalani, who is also a super tactical droid. Mega hero, super tactical droid. And he's got the droid brain ability. He also comes with a free HMP gunship, which those things are absurd. Possibly the best unit in the Confederacy ground roster. Can't recommend this guy enough. He's a fan favorite. There's even a dev who's taking the name. It's pretty sweet. Really great hero. You cannot go wrong with him. And then Fire Command and all that. He comes with Rangers too. He comes with those a team of those BX Commandos with the Ranger role. And I think he also comes with the Tactical Droid, a regular one. Pretty sure on that. Can't double check because he's actually dead in my campaign because I'm bad. But Kalani's amazing. You can never go wrong building him. If I'm gonna just spoiler alert to respect your time. If you can only build 2 of these guys, it should be the super tactical droids. And that's the next segue here into the meat of it here. This is a super fan favorite. You might be shocked to see him in the A tier instead of the S tier. But let me just explain why I've put TX21 in the A tier instead of the S tier. The TX21 is outstanding. I've used him twice. Gotten him killed once, regrettably, in my most recent playthrough. Got him killed offline, but he comes with Nantex fighters on the ground, which is just insane. It's the only way you can get Nantex fighters on the ground. Just really fast, agile units that deal pretty reasonable damage. I mean, just having air units at all is nice. Nantex fighters are awesome. They're great. And then he comes with Elite Geonosians and Geonosians, which are really good on the ground. They fly. They're really quick. They have speed 20, and they have the Sonic Blasters, which deal pretty good damage. So Geonosians are great, and you can pair this guy with, another hero we have here, Poggle, down in the free slot. Poggle the Lesser. You really, in theory, are only supposed to be able to use these on defense, but I mean, putting him on Geonosis, he's a great hero to have. He makes production faster for your infantry and small vehicles and such. So, if for some reason they ever attack Geonosis, I don't recommend keeping TX21 on defense, obviously, because that would be a waste. But just another way to get Geonosians if you're curious. You can put them in the Pathfinder slot or, try to attack them on the ground. Pretty sure that works. I'll have to double check, but you can have a whole ton of Geonosians defending on a border world if you're interested in that, with a Cunning General from Poggle and insane buffs to your Geonosians. They're already good by themselves. I've gone off on a bit of a side tangent there, but TX21 is outstanding, but not mandatory per se. Like personally, if I'm competing for the build slot, I prefer the super tank hero. I just love artillery. So with a build limit of 3 on your super tanks and Domb Treetor, that means you can have Dome and 1 regular, and then 2 in another army. So really good super tank coverage in that way. So I've pretty much front loaded this video out of respect for your time. If you're only going to use 2 to 4 ground heroes, it really should be the 4 that are on the top right now. Kalani, Linwodo, TX21, and Domb Treetor. I sincerely believe they are the best of the best. And then in the F tier down there, with maybe a niche application that I'm missing, please let me know if you have different thoughts on the vehicle commander. But there's a niche application for him. Don't think he's worth the build slot, but if you get awarded some late game somehow through a mission, maybe he's usable. But this is pretty much the 4 you want to stick with. My thoughts on the rest are a bit more nuanced, I think, because there's, we're splitting hairs effectively with the rest of the list. So without further ado, Gap Nox is next. This is that Neimoidian hero that I mentioned a few moments ago. If I can just find his icon, here we go. So I put him in the B tier because he's not really... If you're going to use one infantry hero, it should be Gap Nox in my opinion because of that sandbag ability. You like things that increase the durability of your infantry. Well, at least I do. You should consider increasing their durability. Gap Nox goes okay with Grievous in the early game because Grievous is a ruthless general. Well, and admiral. He's a ruthless commander. And what that means is that everyone in your army is going to be taking a lot more damage. And that's usually fine because your infantry is fragile. But Gap Nox, he comes with sandbags, so a nice little extra bit of durability to your gun line, your infantry. You can mix him in with anywhere, he fits just fine. But he's only in the B tier because he's not really mandatory. And then, of course, spoiler alert, we'll quickly fill in here the other 2. So yeah, just to clarify, you can see them on the screen, but I got a little bit more to say about Gap Nox. He's got also a firing position, which makes him more durable and increases his fire rate. And he also has fire command, which is pretty much mandatory for infantry commanders. So can't sing enough praises for Gap Nox if you're an infantry commander, if that's your thing. If you want to go that way, I love Gap Nox. So then next up, you have this rare, it's a Zagarians, that's what they're called. He's a Zagarian named Dartstinar. He has the Ruthless Infantry Commander trait, which is actually pretty handy because the defense debuff only applies to your infantry, which you don't really care about their durability. So in that way, I actually think he's better than General Grievous in some ways. I don't like risking General Grievous on the ground. That's another aside about him, kind of weaving it in here. But getting 30% damage on your infantry is quite good, and they're already fragile, so you're not really losing a whole lot. 30% damage, 20% speed, faster ability recharge, and the net launchers, so you can net enemy infantry. I don't think the Confederacy needs help killing infantry, so I don't think that ability is as useful. There are other interpretations, certainly maybe niche counters like jetpack troopers or the paratroopers, whatever, if you're having problems with those. But he's in C tier just because he's not mandatory, and I think Gap Nox is better. Next down here we have Horn Ambigene, who I really wanted to rate higher, but with only 10 commander build slots, I don't see a world where I ever build this guy. He's got cool lore, and it's kind of an awesome idea. I'd love to see him made a raider someday. Please, Dynamon Group, if you're listening, please make this guy a raider. That would be busted, but, Sis rating might need it. We'll get to that later. We'll talk about Count Dooku and Ventress. But inspiring infantry commander, you don't really care about your infantry's health, so 15% health, whatever. Ooh, I'm gaining 1 hit point. It's just not as impactful. Most infantry don't have shields, so you don't care about that either. 10% damage is okay, but Ruthless Commanders do it better. I really don't see a world where you need Horn Ambigene. And the loadouts, he doesn't even have fire command. Not sure if that's an oversight or not. Hopefully it is. It is disappointing. It appears that he was balanced differently. I also should have mentioned Dart's Dinar does not have fire command either, which also hurts his rating. But I do think he's better than Horn Ambigene, hence the ratings. Next up here we have K2B4, who I really wanted to like. It's difficult to quantify how worthwhile it is to build K2B4 because she is really only useful on defense, which is almost definitely not worth a build slot, hence me putting her in D tier. But I even built her in my campaign for Skako Minor to defend on the ground, and the AI just never attacked. Sold this commander right before the AI attacked there, so maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe the AI is scared of K2B4. The 50% damage bonus to ground turrets sounds incredible because the power generator gives you another 50%. So that means your ground turrets are hitting at 200%, which is really cool. And again, I tried to test it. It sounds amazing on paper. Never got to because the AI wouldn't attack. So maybe a D tier is the deterrent tier. Like, hey, put this somewhere you don't want to get attacked. The AI, maybe it's scared of K2B4. But I don't think that's worth a build slot. I want to love K2B4, but I just can't justify it when there's so many other great heroes out there. And sadly, that is the only notable thing about this hero. The ground complement is not particularly impressive. Next up is going to be TX20, an Audacious Commander, which is an incredible buff. Let me drag the icon up here. If you'd asked me a month ago how good TX20 was, I would have said A tier easily. But J1's coming as a escort, as a complement, J1's caught a pretty hard nerf that made them no longer viable against, as anti-air. So that significantly hurts the ground complement. Audacious Commander is great, but I personally don't see this being as good as it was because J1s aren't dedicated anti-air anymore. I do kind of miss that window. I get why it had to be adjusted. It's not a bad call, but it does hurt TX20 quite a bit because I don't think that anything else brought to the table is it's cool, but it's not like mandatory. So getting armor pierce on AATs, on an AAT, I'm not gonna lie, is pretty sweet. TX20 comes in an AAT, and again, those two J1 proton cannons used to be incredible. They're still decent. Whether it's whether it's worth a build slot or not. I think J1s are slow. I don't like using them on offense that much. I put them on defense sometimes, but I'm more of a fast attack kind of guy. I like to get in, do a lot of damage, and then hopefully leave with less casualties. You can overwhelm a turbo laser turret by just rushing in with a bunch of AATs. Getting a little off topic here, but J1s, I don't know. They aren't what they used to be. He's fine. You can't go wrong building him, hence why he's in C tier. Next up, we have TN123, who I might be a little harsh on, but I'm dropping right into the F tier. The reason, if you can bear with me here, I know having a hero complement with dwarf spider droids sounds great. I'm not a fan of Octoparas. They're very slow. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of slow units. They have their place. I'm trying not to be biased here, but it's a conflicting loadout. It's like this is a commander that's a bold vehicle commander, which is a very small bonus compared to some of the other things on this list. This bold vehicle commander comes with fire command and a whole bunch of infantry. You got a sergeant, you got your 8 gunners, you have a team of BX commandos, and then you have some dwarf spiders, some staffs, and some octoparas. It's just a weird mix. So yes, bold vehicle commander does buff the dwarf spiders and the octoparas, and I don't think so. Fire command is negative synergy because that doesn't help the dwarf spiders. Because if you read I really should have done the generic tier list first for vehicles and stuff. But if you look at what dwarf spiders bring to the table, it's a small vehicle. It's like you can bring an audacious commander, like TX20 would be way better. Just makes him do more damage. That's just straight up better than the small buff, and then fire command not doing anything. And then oh no, I have a ground-based commander. It's just negative synergy inside the unit. Like why would it doesn't the unit's own design doesn't complement itself well, which is that's a shame. So let's move up to a bold leader who actually does pull his weight and do something impressive. Whorm Loathsom goes to the B tier because you start with him, so most players are going to have experience with him.
The bold bonus, yes, it's a little on the small side. We're not a big fan of it. I mean, it is what it is. It's not bad. There's no downside, so that's considerable. That's notable. But the real thing that makes him notable is the deploy shield ability. So he's in a AAT that comes with two other AATs, which is just really powerful. The shield ability is really cool. This guy's kind of like Marai on the ground without the massive offensive penalty. The reason that I put him in B tier is because I just think that the synergies I've listed above are a little bit better. Later in the game, you probably have either going to lost this guy or sold him for a naval commander. Deploy shield's really cool, but it's not as good on the ground as it is in space, in my opinion, because your AATs, they'll always try to shoot out, they'll rush out of it. So they'll deploy it automatically. I mean, you can deploy it manually, which is much better, obviously, but even if you do deploy it manually, you look away for 2 seconds, and the AATs, they're going to rush out of the shield you just deployed. So it's an Empire War problem that's not on the devs. Getting free vehicles, like all of your ground commanders come with free vehicles. That's why I'm not making such of a big deal about it. Free compliments, I should say, infantry in some cases. So it doesn't have quite as high of a priority, but tanks are great. I love AATs. I would run this guy 10 out of 10 times over the Separatist vehicle commander, just because you're bringing value in the shield. It's like I'd rather that than a 2.5% buff, right? You're not even gonna notice that. So again, doubling down, there's no world where I'd bring the Separatist Vehicle Commander. Build this guy instead if you want to have a buddy for Domb Treetor. That's my take. So next, let's talk about someone who's going straight into the D tier again. I guess D tier stands for the disappointment tier because Duke Solha is just so underwhelming compared to. I'm not going to go off on a tangent here, but the Arc Hammer in Awakening of the Rebellion is so much better. You can build the Dark Troopers from the Arc Hammer anywhere. This guy, for some reason, to build Cortosis droids, yes, it's kind of a lore reason. I bet they rebalanced this for the Arc Hammer. Maybe. Never mind, it's a factory ship. We're getting off into the weeds here, but Duke Solha is D tier for disappointing tier because he really doesn't do anything that we want. I mean, he's cool, an MTT hero. Wow. But not only that, he's got the political trait. So if you're bringing a political general and debuffing your health by 10%, like here's one thing. Yes, his MTT does have more health than others. That's kind of cute. So like he's still more durable. I thought that was cool that they planned for that. But his complement of Cortosis battle droids isn't worth it because first of all, what is a Cortosis battle droid? It's resistant to melee damage. It's resistant to lightsabers. Which whoop-de-doo. Why do you need your B2 battle droids to be more durable against Jedi? I would rather just bring more B2s than waste a commander build slot on this guy and have to fly to an advanced droid factory just to build them. It's like you can't. The fact that you can't build them anywhere is just, and it's just irritating. The fact that they're just like slightly more durable battle droids, B2 battle droids. It's like, why is that even worth it? I mean, it's cute. It's kind of lore accurate. It's like, oh, I'm Jedi hunting. You get the Confederacy Act 4. It's time to kill a Jedi. Yeah, if you want to roleplay, that's awesome. You should. The AI is not threatening in most cases. When you know how to beat it, it's like, yeah, roleplay. By all means, please do. I think that'd be really cool. But if you're playing to win, do not build Duke Solha. That's pretty much it. Political general is just really bad, obviously. Next up, we're going back to the C tier for controversial tier with Captain Sparky. I know it might seem shocking to put him in just the C tier because he is actually quite good. Again, C tier is usable. I can't stress that enough. Nothing wrong with C tier. If you want to overinvest in army, these are perfectly good. But the reason he's in C tier is because Count Dooku does his job better. Yes, you want to make sure that you're not wasting Count Dooku. You want to be using him for diplomacy, but there will come a time, probably around week 120, 130, when you're kind of running low on diplomacy targets, and you can start considering using Count Dooku in combat. Count Dooku is a disciplined commander with no debuffs. 5% damage, 5% speed, a little bit of ability recharge. It's pretty good. It's not bad. And realistically, you don't even have to use a commander with your stealth squads. So your BX Commando Raiders, they're so good at what they're doing. You just bring 5 of them, deploy them, stealth, rush the hypervelocity gun, blow it up, and you don't care if they live or die. In my opinion, you don't really need to invest Ventress or Dooku in that. It's like, what else are you going to do with Ventress, right? Like, yeah, you can bring her. I think she's outstanding. She's free. She does a lot of damage. Um, Another consideration, Asajj Ventress and Dooku can absolutely destroy Jedi, especially 2v1ing, because he buffs her, Dooku buffs her, and he buffs the other droids, which is notable. So you just have this dual team of Sith stealth assassins. You can just obliterate Jedi, and you can blow up hypervelocity guns. You don't actually have to invest Captain Sparky to achieve that goal. Hence why I think he's in the C tier. Him being worth a build slot is arguably not worth it. Uh, like bold infantry commander, 10% shields. That doesn't matter. BX commandos don't have shields, so it's kind of a waste of a stat. 7.5% damage. It's only barely better than Dooku. It's like he just doesn't bring any. Okay, stealth, I guess. Being unstunnable is cute, but it's actually really hard to keep Captain Sparky from dying. Maybe I'm just bad at raiding. I haven't played Rebellion in a while, so but I don't know. He's just it's questionable as to whether or not it's worth a build slot in my opinion. But he's perfectly good. He's not bad. He's not a detriment to your forces like the ones below in DNF tier. Next up, we're going to talk about an audacious vehicle commander. Oh, I misspoke. He's an audacious field commander. He's just a general. He gets everybody. This is incredible. That doesn't actually change my rating. I should have checked the notes better. But General Kleeve here is easily at the top of the B tier because, well, for reasons I'll explain. Audacious is outstanding. This guy is pretty reliable. You can't go wrong having 20% extra damage in your whole army for a minimal downside. Minus 10% defense, you won't even notice that on most units, especially on the ground where stat pools are smaller than in space. But I just think this guy is great because he's kind of like a discount. Forgive me, Hondo, but he's a discount Hondo. So if you want more WLLO tanks, which are quite good, again, that's Brace for Impact, and just a few squads of Deveronians, insurgents on the ground, helpful infantry to cap points. He's just a great value unit. He's probably appropriately balanced, unlike Hondo, who is wildly, incredibly overpowered. I love it. I don't want to see it change. Both factions can use him. I don't know. I love Hondo. But General Kleeve is well balanced. He's a fair unit. He brings lots to the table, including custom flamethrower turrets. So the reason he's in B tier instead of A tier is because fighting infantry isn't really like, yes, the Republic has really scary infantry, but super tanks do the job better and they don't cost a commander slot unless you're bringing Domb Treetor. So if you're going to clear out infantry, also you have Hag artillery. That's like built to kill infantry and it's cheaper. There's no build limits on it. So this guy's job is just done a little better by generic units, but his buff is so powerful that you can get away with bringing him if you like Deveronians or if you like WLO tanks because you're a Black Sun player, Chad. So I love this guy. I used him a lot in my second campaign, my previous campaign before the one I've been streaming or while recording. So B is pretty good. Now the only one left I'm going to be harsh on because he is another unit that has negative synergy within his own unit. Horgo Shive or Shive, however you say it. I'm putting him in the F tier. Again, I'm being really hard on the F tier because they're either totally not worth the build slot or, again, internal contradictions. The reason he conflicts is because he comes in a Hag artillery piece and he has Protective General, that's what Yoda has. It's what Mirai has in space. 25% health, minus 30% damage on an artillery piece, plus 15% defense, 30% shields, minus speed, and slower ability recharge. The two Hellfire droids that he comes with, they don't even have shields. I was like, let me double check. Does the Hag even have? The Hag doesn't even have shields. So like he's not even buffing himself. It's like, oh, 25% health for minus 30% damage on a glass cannon Hailfire droid and on artillery, which shouldn't even be taking damage. Like that is just, oh, it's very disappointing. It's negative again, negative synergy within the unit. I'm not gonna say he's badly designed because it's a very lore flavorful unit. He's the Banking Clan security director. He comes with the Hailfire droids. I think that's cool, but it's not good. Um, I don't believe, to small tangent here. I don't think that perfect balance should always be. This is gonna sound crazy. Balancing doesn't have to be like equivalent. Like there doesn't have to be an equivalent unit for everything. Um, Having like bad or questionable role units is not always bad for game design. So you can have a unit that contradicts itself and still be good and fun. Like, I don't want everything to be in a vacuum where our units are just reskins of each other. But this guy, it's just a little difficult to justify a build slot for him when there's so much else going on. It's like generally you want your artillery to be far away. By the way, Hailfire droids don't even have advanced range. Like their sensor range, it's it's less than an AAT's at Fog of War Reveal 400 compared to 500 on the AAT's. It's not even like he comes with spotters. I don't know. Went off on a small tangent there, but I think you can see the spirit of what I'm going for. And we've finally arrived at the bounty hunters. So this section will be brief, but like I said, bounty hunters are much better on the ground than they are in space. So you should always have two of these. Well, you should always consider having two of these. Like you can only have 10 units deployed at once on the ground, so it's not really mandatory per se, but they bring a lot of value in space and they bring pretty good, they're pretty useful on the ground as well. We're going to start with Aurra Sing, who I believe is the best bounty hunter. She's really, really good at killing Jedi. I mean, fittingly, right? So she comes with a sniper, which is the most notable thing about her. She has two fire modes, but really you want to use the sniper to chunk Jedi down. It deals an absurd amount of damage. Um, I think that hers is the most direct, it's the easiest ability to use and understand what she does. It's like, oh yes, click switch to sniper, click rage, shoot Jedi. Her weapon is a Zerka sniper rifle. It's so cool that Zerka still exists. I always forget about that because they're from Knights of the Old Republic. But anyways, she's super good. She has dodge if she ever gets caught in melee, and you can switch her to those pistols and see how well she holds up. I don't think I've ever allowed Aurra Sing to be in melee with a Jedi. I don't know how that would go, but just put a bunch of stuff in front of her, keep her from getting in melee, just let her snipe stuff down. She's really good, really easy to understand the use of. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Next, we'll do Cad Bane, who I think is an interesting choice. It's like your bounty hunter contracts expire, you can cycle through, try them all out. There's really no harm in it. But what this guy is good at, in my opinion, is capping points with his jetpack ability. He also does respectable damage, so the fact that he can come in, get anywhere on the map, and just deal a bunch of damage and then take off again, it's pretty good. So adds to his health in a way. So his health says 250, but really, he's gonna be, you can't Jedi can't hit him if you're using him to kill Jedi while he's in the air. So it's a nice getaway tool. It's really cool. It's flavorful. Speaking of flavor, Bossk is in this game too. I like Bossk a lot. Hunter Instinct is pretty cool for finding units, but I don't know. He just feels. This is all subjective. I understand. Bounty hunters are a little harder to evaluate, but he doesn't quite feel as impactful. Again, I'm a big fan of Hunter Instinct, and I think he's fun, and I probably enjoy using him the most. But his role of anti-personnel, plasma grenades are awesome. Stun grenades, pretty good, quite good. But we don't usually have problem dealing with infantry, so I guess netting and stunning Jedi is quite good, but you can just bring more vehicles, bring more dwarf spiders, do the same thing. So, arguably the worst bounty hunter, but they're all quite good. And again, he's actually potentially my personal favorite between him and Cad Bane. But I put him last just to be unbiased. And last but not least is Embo, who I think is probably the second best. He has a really interesting little ability. It's kind of funny. He's got the throw hat ability, which you can send it through a crowd of clones and deal some damage. His hat also just can negate projectiles, so he's potentially the most durable, depending on how lucky you are. Overloading the blaster is a lot of damage too, by the way. So if you want to kill a Jedi, this guy also has plasma and stun grenades, hence why Bossk is rated lower. But yeah, he's got a bowcaster too, so good old Wookiee tech. But he's a Kyozo, however you say it. So he's not a Wookiee, but maybe he took it from one. I don't actually know his lore. If anybody wants to let me know, please do. But yeah, that is the whole list. It's a little more straightforward. I think these are mostly easier to evaluate, but please feel free to let me know if you disagree about any of these decisions. I know putting TX21 on A tier instead of S tier is probably the most controversial thing here. And if you like stealth, remember Captain Sparky is A-OK. The only thing I would question is using these 6 heroes in the DNF tier. But even then, it's your game. Like if you want to roleplay Horgo Shive, put him on Yaga Minor or Immunalist or Scipio more accurately. Nothing wrong with that. Like I like the idea of K2B4 as well. Just having a turret buffing hero. I think it's cool. Is it good? Probably not. Just use the super tactical droids and whichever others you like. Geonosians are insane. TX21 is definitely a top contender. And then put the rest into your navy, and you will crush the AI. So, thanks for listening to me rambling. Appreciate your views or your clicks and all that fun stuff. And see you next time.